Rather interesting point that if you publicise that burglary solutions and getting a resolution from a crime like burglary and robbery, you publish those figures that they're so low, does that have a self-fulfilling effect in the sense that if you are the kind of person inclined to lob on your trainers and carry a swag bag around in the middle of the night, you might be thinking, well, if ever there was a time to go robbing, it's now, because they're probably not going to catch me. Good point. This is the report that suggested that British policing has lost its way and officers should stop actions like taking the knee and wearing partisan badges or symbols. It warns these actions could be seen as woke by a public which has lost confidence in many forces across the country. The report by the Policy Exchange think tank has urged Britain's next Prime Minister to implement a series of drastic reforms that would protect citizens from a mounting tide of violent crime and disorder and restore public confidence in policing. The author David Spencer spoke to Mike Graham earlier.
What we need to do is get ahead of these crimes and prevent crimes happening in the first place. And the key way of doing that is neighbourhood policing. Your local posted police officer who's there for an extended period of time, who knows the local criminals, who knows the intelligence of what's going on. And unfortunately, what we've seen in recent years is the hollowing out of neighbourhood policing.
That's David Spencer. In a moment, Roy Ram, former Met Police officer. First, Tiffany Lynch, Deputy National Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales. Tiffany, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Thank you for inviting me on today.
It's a pleasure. Just give us your response, if you would, Tiff, to start with, on this report that the police essentially has lost its way.
Well, first of all, I'll come back to what Mr. Spencer has just said that you've just highlighted, which is the way to solve this issue that he has written this document about is through neighbourhood policing. And we totally agree with that. To have officers on the beat, as we used to call it, out there within the communities is the way that we are going to solve crime and sort out antisocial behaviour and get into those communities to form relationships, to give the communities the confidence in the police service that we can actually then take action.
What do you make of the issues around, on the beat rather than on their knee seems to be one of the allegations against the police, that the police have been a bit too touchy-feely with badges and painting their nails, lobbing on some high heels, dancing to YMCA, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Ian, we've always spoken about this in terms of what are the PFEW's view on officers taking the knee and wearing badges. It is a personal choice. What we say is that officers should not be directed or lawfully ordered to do one or the other, to take the knee or not to take the knee. It's a personal choice. But going to badges, for example, on social media, I recall only recently that officers were criticised for wearing a badge, which is the Union Jack with a thin blue line. Yep. That Union Jack represents police officers of England and Wales, British police officers. The thin blue line is to demonstrate the officers that we have lost, that have been killed in the line of duty, and it's to remember our fallen colleagues. So what we're saying is that police officers shouldn't actually be allowed to wear that badge because it has the Union Jack on it.
Which would be extraordinary if we had come to that. And I think I'd like to think most members of the public would support you on that, I guess. And the other thing I thought, I don't know if you heard the intro, Tiff, when I started talking about this, but the fact that the government are boasting of having 20,000 new recruits is just, it's almost like a joke, right? I mean, this was the same government that lost 20,000 officers.
We are seeing the consequences of the actions of 2011. We were depleted in our numbers, and that's not just frontline, that's office staff as well. We cried wolf. We told the government of the day what would happen. The cuts would have consequences. The boasting, the bragging that you mentioned, that we're now recruiting all of these 1,000 officers back into our service, I will honestly say it's a joke. It really is. We're not increasing our front line. We're making up the numbers that we lost in 2011. Times have changed. The population has increased drastically, and more is being asked of us. And our officers can't cope. Yeah.
And when we talk of these low detection rates for things like robbery and burglary, is that just about numbers? Do you sense, or is there something else going on there? Is the Home Office directing priorities elsewhere?
It's individual forces. So individual forces will have different, well, I won't say targets, but they will have different priorities depending on what the crime rates are. Are they number crunching? I don't believe they are. Our officers detecting crimes, they're going out there and they're arresting people for the crimes that are being committed. What we're also sadly seeing is that the backlog at the judicial system in getting those people actually charged with the offences and remanded.
We also heard in this report as well, Mr. Spencer highlighted the issue of online criminality, and we're not talking about hurty words here and you know, your neighbour calling your neighbour a funny name. Genuine crime, fraud, child abuse, things like that. Is there an argument, Tiffany, to almost have not a separate police force, but certainly a huge focus on this area that is no longer a kind of side distraction? This is, for some criminals, the main event, and that's the digital world.
I can see that, but we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. What is the priority? Is the priority violent crime? Is the priority cyber? We definitely need those specialisms. Because at the root of cybercrime, we've got people trafficking, we've got other criminality, money laundering, etc., etc. It all is one big cycle that molds into each other. So in terms of, do we need a separate police force? No, what we actually need are the numbers in the police forces that we've already got to bolster it up so that we can get the intelligence and actually go out there and get these people put behind bars. Yep.
So it's numbers and financing as well. I know they kind of go hand in hand, but it's not just the raw bodies and manpower that are missing. There's been other areas of financial cuts as well.
Absolutely. And money is the root of all evil, they say, but it's also where we can actually go out and do the job that we're supposed to be doing. And chief constables need to be able to be given the finances to actually run their forces.
I mentioned the figure of 13,790, which I know Priti Patel, she told us this at the Federation conference, of course. Very happy that these new recruits are coming in. And I said at the beginning, Tiffany, you know, with respect to new recruits, that's fabulous if people want to join the police service. But of course, it does mean that there is a disproportionate amount of inexperience going in as well, which I know is a huge issue.
Very much so. And to be a police officer is a fantastic occupation. I will still say that now. But we are struggling to recruit. And once you are into the police service, you've got 2 years of probation. You're learning your trade up until at least 5 years. And our workforce at the moment is 75% of our workforce are 5 years and below. We are losing experience hand over fist. And it's very, very concerning.
Indeed. Tiffany, thank you. Tiffany Lynch is the Deputy National Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales. You can hear the exasperation in what she says. They need the numbers. They need the manpower. They need the investment. So I think we can get a little bit distracted. The taking the knee thing, I do think there's a relevance there. I do think it feeds